Well, good morning to you. It's Michael Patrick Shields, and on this day, we must face the news that one of America's great crime novelists, Elmore Leonard, has died at the age of 87 after suffering a stroke in the beginning of August. ABC News entertainment correspondent Bill Deal looks back at Leonard's career.
Elmore Leonard started out writing westerns, then turned his talents to crime fiction and suspense thrillers. Over 25 of his novels and short stories have been adapted for movies and TV, including Get Shorty and its sequel, Be Cool, both starring John Travolta.
You must bring something heavy to the deal.
I do. Me.
I think I'll turn around and go back to Miami.
You're a stuntman, huh?
Yeah.
You any good?
I mean, he's got no respect for us.
Leonard's novel Rum Punch became the Quentin Tarantino film Jackie Brown, starring Robert Forster, Samuel L. Jackson, and Pam Grier.
Where's Melanie?
Well, that's what I want to tell you. You see, she was bugging me the whole time.
So what, you left her there?
I shot her.
You shot Melanie?
Twice.
Is she dead?
I pretty much.
Leonard's ear for dialogue has been praised by other famous writers like Stephen King, and Leonard once said,
I'm very much aware in the writing of the dialogue, or even in the narrative too, of a rhythm. There has to be a rhythm with it, that the beat goes on.
The FX television series Justified was inspired by the Elmore Leonard short story Fire in the Hole. Bill Deal, ABC News.
Leonard once described how actually it's his characters that lead him through the book as he writes it.
They're going to tell their own story. They're going to tell who they are. Because I make up my book as I go along.
Yeah,
I like to always use the character's point of view and leave me out of it.
He lived in Bloomfield Township there, and he's been on my program a number of times. He was on the JP show. We called him for that program a number of times. And one time, this was actually very embarrassing, the 220 restaurant in Birmingham there, the waitress sat me down. I was with a couple people at a table, and he was at the next table, and she said, "Oh, I have the 2 authors in my section." And I thought, he's done 42 books, and I've done, 6. So let's not call us in the same group. Ray Walsh from the Archives Bookshop and the Curious Bookshop, and a literary critic for the Lansing State Journal, is here in our AT&T studio. Welcome back.
It's fun to be here.
Under tough circumstances, though, to be sure. You love crime novels. You love mystery novels. That's your specialty, isn't it?
Yep, I've reviewed mysteries and crime novels in Michigan Books for the Lansing State Journal for the last 25 years.
Yeah, and you never missed a Leonard book, I'm sure.
I've read almost all of them.
What made him so special? He was an advertising copywriter who did this on the side in the beginning.
Originally, he started out writing westerns, but he soon found that wasn't selling all that well, and he was having more fun writing crime novels. And he was just had such good characters. You could really relate to them. His dialogue was crisp, and you never fell asleep reading a Elmore Leonard book.
One of his tenets was to leave out the boring parts, the parts that people skip.
Very definitely. He always liked to use the word said. And,
yeah. Instead of joked or laughed or admonished, always just said.
Well, he felt that was the way that the readers could relate much better to him, because that's what they were saying.
Let them create the deal.
Well, it's a sign of a good author to have the characters develop in their mind from what he says.
Yeah, I saw that 10 Rules of Writing that they turned into a book. It was actually just an article, I think, in the New York Times. And he said that in one Ernest Hemingway book, the only description of a character was she walked into the room and put her hat on the table.
Sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes it's better to make it pop in the reader's mind. And I think that's one of the reasons he was able to sell so very well, because once the readers caught on, they wanted more, and he was able to produce it over a long period of time. He was one of America's best crime writers, with no 2 exceptions about it.
I asked him one time, it was about 3 years ago, I guess. I said, when you're going to do a book, do you have to send the outline or the proposal to your publisher, or will they take whatever you send? He says, no, they'll take whatever I send. At that point, with that much success, it didn't matter. They just wanted a book out of him.
Well, he also made a small fortune off of his adaptations, but he didn't always like the way that they were produced in Hollywood. He had a few things to say about some of the films that were produced, but he was pretty proud of his work with Justified, and actually wrote a book based on a character that appeared in a short story that is the star of the justified TV series.
Yeah, and he often set his stories in Detroit and in South Florida. It seemed like almost exclusively.
Well, I consider his best books to be some of his early books, and most of those were set in Detroit, for whether it was Swag or some of the other titles. I grew up in Northwest Detroit, so I could relate to it. Even though my parents eventually moved to Florida, I felt that his characters were more sharply defined in his earlier books, and I just enjoyed the action.
He told me when I interviewed him for my JP book that I wrote, J.P. McCarthy, that he'd sent one of his books to John Gotti in prison, mailed it to him, and asked him, if you can write me back, let me know what you think. That's plucky, isn't it?
Well, what kind of response did he get?
I don't know if he got a response, but I thought it was pretty cool that he did it.
Well, he had a lot of nerve, but he also I met him a few times. I've got a book that was inscribed to me by him, and he was a very interesting character, kind of laid back, but he certainly had his own opinions about things.
Yeah, he worked right in his house. I remember him telling me that. Sit right in the living room with all the noise going on and everything else. And I'm pretty darn sure that he enjoyed marijuana, even in his advanced age. He was that cool. Put it that way.
Either ahead of his times or just up with the times.
You brought his high school yearbook that you got with a picture of him, and then you have Freaky Deaky, a signed copy right there.
Yeah, that was
personalized.
That was inscribed to me by Leonard. He did some signings and also appeared at the some of the American Booksellers conventions, and so I've gotten some things signed by him.
His son's getting in the racket now too. Eh?
Yes, Peter's written 2 books, and I believe he's going to be finishing the one that Elmore was working on.
Oh wow!
So that would be a combination, I would suspect.
Do we know what that's about?
I have the title written down.
Do you? I know he was doing. He did that pirate book too. That's the one he was working on.
It's called Blue Dreams.
Aha.
And that was scheduled, I believe, for 2014 release. But
well, it'll sell a lot of them now, as we've lost Dutch Leonard, Ray Walsh, Archives Bookshop, Curious Bookshop in East Lansing, and LSJ.com. Great to see you again.
Good to be on.
Good reading to you, sir.